You're listening to the 23 Personnel Podcast, a Texas Tech athletics podcast where food and sports clash at the goal line. Here are your hosts, Spencer and Michael.
All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 23 Personnel Podcast. I am your host, Spencer, joined by Michael. Michael, what's up, man?
Hey, I found the world's smallest Sprite bottle. This is in my stuff.
It's like an ounce?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. This is in some random stuff that my daughter found. And it's mine. It's something I've had. It's a glass bottle of what I assume is Sprite. It's got a little lid on it. And she asked me a very poignant question the other day. Dad, what's in this? And I thought, I really don't know.
Oh, no.
I'd be very surprised it's actually Sprite. But then again, it says Sprite on the bottle. So that would be so disappointing if someone actually opened this thing. This thing's probably 20 years. 20, no, that's not even fair. 30. It's probably 30 years old.
Wow.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. Good to hear it. Good
It
to
was
see you.
a tough transition getting back to work on Monday. Yeah. It's been a busy couple of days. We have,
Ooh.
without a football game to talk about this week, a lot of football to talk about this week.
Strap in.
We're gonna use this break to look back on the regular season, tell you how everything went down, not only with just Texas Tech, but with the rest of the conference. Talk about how we projected the standings over unders before, when we talked about the preseason projections of where the teams would finish, why they would hit that, why they would be better or worse. A couple of them spot on. 4 months old, and it's like, hey man, that was actually pretty good. Several of them not even close. We'll talk about those. The other thing, and I know it's beating a dead horse, and I just want to put it out there because I took the time to do it. The impact of Zach Kitley and this offense, and we know it was bad this year. But I've got some numbers for you, some numbies to share with you, and it's probably worse than you were thinking. But just gonna share it for the team, for the family, for y'all, and let you ruminate on what it all means. But after we're done beating that dead horse, we'll talk about some basketball because it's full on basketball season now, Michael. We are 6 games in. We got another game coming this week, and things are happening. I don't.
Games are being played. I've seen
6
scores.
games. Yeah, I've seen scores. I've seen games. I've seen minutes. I've seen dunks. I've seen threes.
Have you?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, okay. I've missed most of those.
I'm not entirely sure what I've seen. Like, I've seen Texas Tech basketball play games, actual meaningful games. I'm not sure what any of it means, but we'll talk about it and more. Namely, because we didn't get to talk about Thanksgiving foods, and we were so wrapped up with Texas Tech basketball just demolishing Michigan and nothing else on Friday.
Yeah.
That we didn't even talk about Thanksgiving foods. And what are we if we're not a food podcast? So, yeah, with that, I think we'll go ahead and jump into some football. I know it had long since happened by the last time we recorded, but Texas Tech soccer season came to a close in the 3rd round of the NCAA tournament. They fell 1-0 to North Carolina. And unfortunately, they lost only twice on the season. Once in the Big 12 tournament, once in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Otherwise undefeated this season. 16-2-5 is their final record. Heck of a season. Super
Yes.
proud of the way that team competed and just absolutely dominated this season.
Yes, and that UNC loss was really tough. UNC, those girls were so fast. I couldn't believe how quickly they would jump on Texas Tech on defense. I felt like our players had nowhere to go. Usually, you have a little bit of cushion when you get the ball. Not against UNC, not against North Carolina. They were like the fastest girls on the planet. So you could tell right away that this was really going to be tough, and the defense that they play and how they were able to stick with our girls step for step the entire game. Knew it was going to be tough, and yeah, I think Maddie White had like 6 saves. Just one shot got past her, but a heck of a season, a really hard fought game, and if you're going to go out, it's better to end on 1-0 than 57-7.
Yeah. You got to go there, didn't you?
I did. It's a segue.
It is. Yeah, so let's talk about football, Michael.
Okay. I did start this. It's my fault. It's my own fault.
So you wrap up season 6-6. Let's start with our preseason schedule predictions. Let you know how we did. Um, Not that you need a reminder that I was very optimistic and thought Texas Tech could win 10 games this season. But I thought Texas Tech could and would win 10 games. Of my 12 predictions, I went 8-4 on the season. That's not bad. Michael flipped that. He predicted an 8-4 season, and he went 10-2 on the season in his predictions. While Texas Tech went 6-6.
Yeah,
So
if only. So we both had Texas Tech beating Wyoming and West Virginia. So those are the two that I missed. That if you could have any of a back, those would probably be the two you'd pick, aside from BYU.
Texas.
Oh,
I won the Texas one. Come on, man.
I know.
No, but
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
right.
We
You're
want
right.
we want to win. We don't want to be right. That's a good point. I'm not trying to. Well, actually, if I still want Tech to lose because I predicted them to lose in August. No, it was just. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much we want to go through the actual
I'm not going to go
pains of it
game by
all.
game. No,
Thank you.
but
Okay, good.
you're like, I remember when we were predicting these games game by game. We both came to BYU as like, well, you're not good on the road. This is one of those games where like you don't know what BYU is, and you're kind of set up to have a weird clunker of a game on the road, and that is exactly what happened. So I will give us credit for while we both predicted a loss in August, we both knew exactly how that game was going to play out, even though it played out very differently than I
Yeah,
would have
with a
thought.
different quarterback.
Oregon, I predicted to win. You were right there. Your offense looked completely different in game 2 than it did in like game 10 or 11. You should have won Wyoming. Let's not beat around that bush. And the rest, I mean, Michael, I mean, you went on a heck of a streak, man. 4 games in, you were 2-2, and then you rattled off 8 straight consecutive proper predictions.
Yes.
I went on a 5-game win streak there at the end. Not that that really matters.
We had the same. We had this. Well, obviously, that's how math works. We had the same picks the last 5 games, and so
Yeah,
we had a good pulse of everything by the time the 21st of October came around. Back
yeah,
when we did all this in August, we just kind of knew. Finished the season on a little 2-3 stretch. That's fine. You're still going to win 8 or 10 games. What's the big deal? Sounds
yeah.
great. Sign me up.
So I mentioned the offense, and I mentioned in the tease there earlier that we're going to talk about the Kitley offense and the impact and the stats and all that kind of stuff. And you can have all kind of caveats, all kinds of justifications about why it was the way it was. But I also know that like there were lots of times where we thought that what was happening was going about the absolute most asinine way of calling plays, and um namely like those sideline screen passes to average a yard per reception. I didn't actually do that math, but trust me, that's about what it was. Outside of that one, I guess it was Xavier White that took one like 30 yards. The rest of them was like at the line of scrimmage or behind. Um, I'm going to run through these stats and tell me which one of these surprised you the most, Michael. Total
Okay.
passing yards on the season, 2,653. I'm just going to stop right there because that's like half at least of what you should be thrown for. I mean, bare minimum, he should be hitting 4,000 yards. That's what I think. 2,600 passing yards on 426 pass attempts. That is 6.23 yards per attempt. In terms of Kitley offenses, it's the lowest it's ever been. Even in year one at HBU, he had a better yards per attempt. He had more passing attempts, more passing yards, but more yards per attempt. 21 passing touchdowns, and also a low watermark for a Kitley offense. Not Tech's lowest, because in Cumbie's last year, Texas Tech only threw for 18 touchdowns. But you also had 30 rushing touchdowns that year, whereas this year you had 16.
I
So
wanted
Kitley's offense generated 37 total touchdowns.
okay. All right, I've got two things. One, would you be surprised if I told you that let me get over here. As far as yards per game, your leader in the quarterback room is not Tyler Shuck and is not Baron Morton.
How do you mean?
Well, so I was trying to pull it up, but it's it's being stupid. So I was stalling, and I'm still stalling. So what I mean is, in passing, Jake Strong averaged 204.5 yards per game. Shuck
Okay.
was 186. Morton was 166.
That last
Now,
game against Texas certainly did not help.
now, of course, Strong had 35 completions on the year on 65 attempts. And of those 30 incompletions, 6 went to the other team. So sliding scale. But I just, he had the worst, percentage as well. But I don't think that helps Kitley's case either for your third string quarterback to somehow be able to amass more passing yards per game. I I know there's a ton of other thoughts through there. By the time Strong came in, Tech was down. At BYU, they were on the road, and he did have a couple of big breakout passes, I think. But that's also how he got all those interceptions, was because he was throwing it deep and just kind of hoping somebody was down there. But I'm trying to equate. Okay, that was the first thing. I'm trying to equate the passing yard disappearing, just production period, points disappearing, with a different style of offense. Is it that effective to run the ball that much more? I mean, does it set it up to a point to where, well, of course you're not going to have more passing yards. Of course you're not going to have as many attempts because you are running the ball effectively when you do it. It's just kind of a chicken egg circular logic thing. I can't come around to it completely, but I do think that no, I don't think Texas Tech has to be an air raid team. They have to have X amount of yards a game necessarily through the air. But I do think points matter. I would like to see a lot more points per game. And sometimes the way you do that is you call passing plays where receivers get open and they run a drag across the middle, or they slant towards the post, or they just run a slant, or they run an out. Um, and you can get the ball to them quickly. Sometimes they can break a tackle. But to just throw a fade after fade after fade, um, sometimes those work, sometimes they don't. And if you're going to just throw nonstop fades, you've got some guys that were 6'7" on your team that combined for like 15 catches. That's not right. I actually looked that up. I think Cup had like 11, and I think Tharp had 15, something like that on the season. I didn't realize they were that close. Tharp and Cup were just a few receptions away from having the same amount. So they averaged just barely over one per game. I don't know where you're going next. Sorry. You just said one stat. And we just rattled off like 5 minutes of cathartic nonsense, or I did anyway.
So I think your passing offense definitely was abysmal. And I don't know what it is, because if you look back at Kitley's, this is apples and oranges. If you look at Kitley's last year at Western Kentucky, Michael, he had 4 receivers surpass Tech's leading receiver this year. Do you know how many yards our leading receiver this year has, Michael?
Are you calling him leading receiver by yards or receptions? Because those are two different guys.
Yards.
Yes, I do.
It's not great.
It's less than 500.
495 yards. That's your leading receiver in terms of yardage. Xavier White, 34 catches, 495 yards. Now, I'm not going to tell you and go back and do the math and tell you the last time you had a receiver, your leading receiver, be that low. I will say Western Kentucky's 5th receiver that year had 220 yards. 4th, 691. 3rd, 763. 2nd, 1402. 1st, 1902.
And we can acknowledge, man, I'll get there eventually, that year is special and an anomaly, and all sorts of records were made. But man, to almost quadruple, to be 2 years removed from a receiver who would almost quadruple the yardage of your top receiver seems to not be trending the way it should be. And speaking of top receiver, so Xavier White's gone. Miles Price looks to be gone, and he was the top receiver by receptions despite only playing 10 games. I found this today too. It seemed like the more active he was in games, the better Tech did. So of his 43 receptions, 27 of them came in Tech's 6 wins, and then the other 16 were in Tech's 6 losses. And yes, there's some zeros in there. Like, he didn't play versus UCF, Tech won. But he also didn't play versus Texas. We know how that went. And then he didn't log a catch versus West Virginia. Although he played, he had at least one return. But I think he was banged up that day. There was something weird. So that's all I'm trying to show is, well, he didn't play versus Texas. Yeah, I know. That's proving the point. If Miles Price isn't around, Tech has a harder time putting points on the board.
Yeah. Now you could say, well, Spencer, it's because they ran the ball more this year.
Right. That's fair. It's
Well,
fair.
okay, so Texas Tech ran 437 times for 1,990 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. You know what the Western Kentucky rushing output was?
What's that?
349 carries, so 80 carries
100 less
fewer,
80. Okay.
but they played in 14 games. So the
A lot
difference,
less per game.
that's 5 fewer carries per game. They finished with 1,434 yards, so just over 100 yards a game, whereas Texas Tech finished at 1,990, which was 142. So they had 40 more rushing yards per game. That is it. Tyler Shuck had, let's see, because that just came up in the YouTube comments. Tyler Shuck had 149 yards, 750 passing yards. So he had about a 900 total yards. Chase, to your point there. My goodness. Okay, so that was passing. 4.55 yards per carry this year. That's a little bit. I mean, we expected to be down. Is the best that he's done. Kitley has. 2021, so Cumbies last year when it was super heavy run, 4.7 yards per carry. Actually, a much better rushing offense that year. 30 rushing touchdowns. Last season, Michael, we had 28 rushing touchdowns. So you're like, well, like Kitley still ran the ball a lot. We ran in a lot of touchdowns. This year, 16 touchdowns. You dropped 12 rushing touchdowns. Total offense dropped 1,300 yards. Granted, this is 13 games to 12 games so far. But 85 yards per game fewer. And under 5.4 yards per play. Last year it was just under 5.5. Kitley, before he got to Texas Tech, was averaging 6.3 yards per play.
Hang on. So Texas Tech averaged 85 yards per game less on offense this year than last year.
Yes.
Good night.
Total offense.
Sure, but
And
that's a
almost
drive.
all of it is the passing game. So last year you averaged 302 yards per game. This year you averaged 221. You ran for 159.4 yards per game last year. This year you ran for 165.8. So you ran for 6 more yards per game, but threw for 81 fewer yards. So 75, I guess, if I do that math, which is a complete drive.
Yeah.
Oh, and guess what, Michael? Points, you're down 6 points per game.
6. I know. It's a big drop. It's the lowest. I think I brought it up on Friday. It's the lowest it's been since 2008, and I didn't have the guts to go back any further.
And my 18.5 points per game here is offensive touchdown scored. I did not want to consider anything special teams or defensive related.
That's fair.
I
And to make, I did not consider that. So, I mean, maybe there's some weird year where that would really make a difference, but yeah, all of my averages were just straight up points on the board, not necessarily defensive touchdowns or whatever else.
and I don't think you had any defensive touchdowns this year. You did have a special teams kick return, so maybe it wouldn't have mattered. But I just did total number of passing touchdowns and rushing touchdowns times 6, because the extra point, which I did that to every one of his years. I didn't just like, oh, I'm going to take off a point here because I don't like him. No, I just because if they miss the extra point, that's not on Kitley's offense.
That's special teams. Yeah.
If they make the extra point, that's not on Kitley's offense.
Unless they were going
his
for
offense
2
set
and they
them
miss
up.
it.
Right, but I didn't. That happened what, twice, 3 times this year?
I don't know. I feel like it happened in Wyoming.
Yeah, there was that. There was one. I felt like we were chasing points in one of the games.
West Virginia, maybe? or
maybe
Oregon. It was Oregon, I think. I
Oregon.
think it seems like they did a couple of 2-point conversions really early, and then that was that.
Yeah. So 100 fewer points scored this year than last year, 1,300 fewer total yards. Your yards per play was down. Um, your rushing yards per game, which I thought was wild, almost the exact same. Uh, your rushing touchdowns per game went down because you ran for 12 fewer touchdowns. Like, you talk about like the rushing game. Oh, it was Taj Brooks, but like the rushing game only changed by 6 yards, and he was so good. But where was everybody else? Literally, no. Like, Cameron Valdez was second on the team, and he overtook Shuck in like game 12 of the season, or 11. I think it was against UCF, because I don't think he played or carried the ball very much, at least. 40 carries on the season for Valdez, 250 total yards, where he passed Shuck, who had 48 carries and 149 yards. So he put up 100 more yards than Shuck did, but it took him until the second to last game of the season to do it, because nobody else ran the ball. The next running back on this list, Bryson Donnell, 4 carries.
I thought he looked good too.
He did. Oh, and by the way, Tyler Shuck, Nehemiah Martinez, Jake Strong are between running backs 2 and 3 on that list. Jake Strong had more carries and more yards than the next running back. All right. The other thing, which I know we've talked about, but just from conversations I've had, and not like I'm some kind of inside source or anything, don't expect Kitley to be fired. If Kitley leaves, if Kitley's no longer the coach, the offensive coordinator at Texas Tech, it's going to be because he accepted a job somewhere else, at least this season. So you would think something would have to change. I don't know if that means a co-offensive coordinator. I don't know if he would be down for that, and maybe that would instigate a change on his part. I don't know if it would be position coaches, because your receiving went way down, way out the window. I don't even know. It's so bad to have your leading receiver have 495 yards. Duran Bradley, who we thought was going to be have a breakout candidate type season, 430 yards. Also a top name of the possible transfers out. Miles Price, while the transfer portal doesn't officially open until next week, he's assumed to be gone. 43 catches, 410 yards.
Yeah, and he was on, let's see, Lone Star Player of the Year preseason award watch list, Bolitnikoff preseason watch list, and we'd seen what he was able to do.
He looked so good in 2021, and we thought
Yes.
when Kitley was going to show up, he's like, man, we're so excited for Price and what he's going to be able to do. And for 2 years in a row now, it feels like Miles Price has just kind of been in the background here. Last year, 51 catches, 513 yards.
So about the same, but about the same production, but less catches. So almost like if he'd played all 12, it'd have been. He just seems like he could have been used a lot differently, and it would have been way more impactful. But yeah, Bradley's same way. I mean, the glimpses we got to see of him, his first season especially, kind of his coming out party and stuff, he just felt like, okay, he's going to make the leap. But I mean, I'm not calling for Kitley's job by any means. I just do think it's reasonable to question how it got to this point. What was the thought process? Where was it decided that, or was it decided that points aren't really that important? Um, fielding a passing offense that can confuse people and confuse defenses is not that important. Just running the ball as much as possible, almost as a crutch to where it was not something he seemed like he really wanted to do initially, and then it got to where that was about all that was working.
Yeah.
And three different starting quarterbacks. We know all that. That's why I'm kind of thinking
But guess what? You had
that
three
would
different starting quarterbacks last year, and you
true.
put up 1,300 more passing yards last year,
Yeah, and an extra
even with
touchdown.
Donovan. Yeah, with Donovan Smith as the runner that he was more prone to run last year.
Yeah, and if we're going QB3s, Donovan Smith is a slight upgrade to Jake Strong. No shade.
Considerable, and no shade to to Strong.
No shade. But I don't know.
Um,
There's so many factors. I'm not thinking, oh well, he's got to go. But I think he's got to really rethink his philosophy, and especially with all the players he's losing, either to the portal or to just you know exhausting their eligibility. Yes, there's new guys
yeah,
coming in, and yes, there's a lot of new guys on the roster that we should be able to start seeing on the field more, but they're not experienced. You've got to account for that in play calling. And we've seen that sometimes he struggles with accounting for inexperience in play calling, like putting QB3 in and asking him to just start throwing bombs
or
when the game isn't out of hand. You know?
or run the option.
Yeah, yeah. After seeing QB2 go down carrying the ball.
So you talked about talent leaving. The week of the UCF game, we went over the seniors. It's still early, but we've got a couple of names officially thrown out there for guys that are leaving, namely Tyler Shuck, which isn't a big surprise, but maybe it was. It is unfortunate, but I know we all were excited for the future with Baron Morton. We're going to get that, obviously, as the lone standing quarterback. I mean, with Jake Strong and Will Burns and um, Will Hammond, but he's not going to come in and be pushing for starting time. He may push to be QB2, but so not
Well,
having that,
so will the fans after like a couple of bad Bear and interceptions.
yeah, you're
Everything
right.
they were saying this season will just slide right on over to the new QB2.
Yeah. And then offensive lineman Landon Peterson announced his intentions to hit the transfer portal. Um,
Have you seen the smoke about Shuck possibly to UCF?
no,
I've
but
seen a
that
little
will be
scuttlebutt on that.
um, is Plumlee out of eligibility?
I don't know, but now I want to know: would that be the furthest overall distance someone has transferred, unless someone transferred from Hawaii to somewhere? Okay, that can't we
To
can't have
Buffalo?
that. But to go from to go from Oregon to Florida, I mean that's got to be up there.
That would if he lands there. I wouldn't hate that for him. That the offense I think would fit his skill set.
I wouldn't hate anything for him. I mean, I've got a soft spot for him. I really do. I just can't imagine having your career end 3 years in a row, basically like that, and then kind of get the hope that you did in 2022, and pick up pick up your mojo and feel like you can pick up right where you left off, rolling into 23, and then to break your freaking leg.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I've got a soft spot for the guy. So I'm wherever he lands. I don't care where it is. I hope it's a good spot for him, and I'll be rooting for him.
And well, if he lands at UCF, sure, we'll root for him, except for the game next year against us.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Do we play UCF next year? It
I
doesn't
don't
matter.
even know.
We're
Doesn't
not.
matter.
Yeah, it does, but it doesn't. But it's not worth me looking it up.
The other guys, it was tweeted out that Miles Price is expected to hit the portal again, with it not really opening unless they say something themselves. Um, you're not going to see that officially anywhere else. Now this other guy, he tweeted out a highlight video from 2022.
Yeah,
It's Nehemiah Martinez.
Yeah.
And that to me screams like I'm putting my tape out there for those to see me so I can get a look elsewhere.
And
He didn't say he
also
was leaving, but
very obvious, I don't have a 2023 highlight reel because no one gave me the ball. So
yeah,
maybe I'm looking for someone to give me the ball. Here's the last year I actually got to have some touches.
yeah. No, so nobody else is official or even hinted at, but if you are Patreon subscribers to Gambling Gauchos, then you know that Kyle put out a pretty extensive list on those that were uh, portal likely, and it's a significant list, namely because you need to actually make room for the incoming class based on scholarship numbers. Um, but I mean, it- I'm not gonna release anything behind their paywall there, but there are a handful of guys that you would expect, whether it's like a Jerron Bradley, based on their performances, or just guys that had higher expectations and that didn't end up contributing, like a Nehemiah Martinez. Um, and then obviously the other candidates that they've been here a while, they should have cracked the rotation and weren't getting playing time. They're getting passed up by younger guys. Um, anyways, you can find that over on their Patreon. Um, but the next week or so is gonna be crazy. I did see Texas Tech is throwing out offers to transfer offensive linemen like crazy. So that's obviously already a point of emphasis heading into this off season. Looking at guys from the group of 5 level, but with lots of experience. And I know we've had some mixed results there with pulling guys from group of 5 and asking them to step up into the higher competition level and to be able to contribute. Um, but lots of guys hitting the portal from their schools as they're losing coaches or as they're looking for their next opportunity. But offensive line and probably receiver. I don't know if you're going to be looking at like a seasoned but backup quarterback, because past Morton next year you're going to have Jake Strong as the most seasoned guy, um, which isn't always a bad thing, right? Like you don't want your backups to have a whole ton of experience if you're talking about like a quarterback, because that means you have had too many bad things happen. But um, it's also, as we've seen, not a bad thing to have a guy in the wings with some experience. So when they step in, it's not an unmitigated disaster. But that'll be firing up here pretty soon. The coaching silly season, the carousel, is in full effect. Michael, were you surprised that Dana Holgerson was fired?
A little bit. I know that the leadership have kind of stuck their foot in their mouth the last few years, talking about, well, we expect such and such wins here, and they fired Major Applewhite after a 8-5 season in its second year. So I don't think it's. Of course, he got blown out by somebody in the bowl game. I forgot. It was like 70 something. Anyway, I don't think it's crazy out of character that they fired him, but I thought they would at least give him 2 years in the new conference. That was just, I had that in my head. So yeah, I was a little surprised, but also not completely out of character for their leadership.
No. I not surprised, but just like I just rolled my eyes at like Aranda being retained, but he's basically replacing his entire staff. Which
Pulling a Tom Herman.
at that point is like, well, I mean, shouldn't that also be you? Like if everybody is going, shouldn't you just like, yeah, that was me too. Who else?
We got the new
West
guy at A&M.
Virginia. Yeah, Mike Elko at A&M. I always like they never fail to to entertain me, the Aggies, when they put their arrogance on display. When the whole Mark Stoops was like agreed to in theory, whatever, for all of like an hour or whatever it was this weekend, until the board, I guess, hadn't signed off on it. The fan base had a huge uproar, like, no, 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 no. We reached out, and Mark Stoops, and he's great, but he's not our guy. And then Mark Stoops released that statement. I've been contacted, but I'm super happy here. I was like, dude, you had agreed to it in terms, basically starting to pack your home. And then A&M's like, hold the phone, guys. Slow your roll. But then also like thinking about who is available, and like up and comers that you were thinking like we're kind of tabbed like the next big guy or the next, hot name. Like this was not a deep coaching pool this year, right? Like you weren't hearing like, oh
Right.
man, like this is like this guy's just waiting for his next turn. Like Trailer, his name was thrown up a couple years ago, and just like all the openings now is like, I mean, I guess he could go to Houston. I guess he could go wherever, like all these places. Um, yeah. So it's just like all that's going on. Did you see the
Hang on.
work?
I had one more thing on A&M.
Oh, please do. Please share.
I'm trying to get it to work, and it's not working. Anyway, a friend of mine who's an Aggie sent this photo of Elko. I'm just gonna show you. I don't think I have his name on there. Do you see the photo? And he
Where
was,
is it? Okay, there it is.
oh yeah, I've got it on the screen. And so it was mainly just, and then he just commented. So it's him at his press conference, and he's waving up, and he's got his suit jacket on. And my friend just says, "Big boy coach with an ill-fitting jacket. Let's effing go." And I mean, he means that in like the best way. He just wants somebody that coaches football, and just come on, let's just get a guy here that can coach football. So I kind of appreciated the simple things of that. Didn't
Yeah.
have like some big to do or whatever. He's just wearing some off the rack coat and looked uncomfortable. And my friend was like, "Yeah, this is who we need. Just some guy who's like, I just want to go coach football. Let's go figure this out."
All right. Speaking of coaching football, Michael, the bowl game projections. That was a terrible segue. Has Texas Tech staying fairly local to the large alumni base there in the DFW area. Two possibilities there in DFW, and then one in Shreveport. So just a short 3-hour drive. But I think most likely, at least right now, would be the Independence Bowl. Not that far off, on the 16th of December, versus a Pac-12 team. I haven't looked at their standings to figure out who that would be, but
I've seen Cal mentioned quite a bit.
Cal, that was the name. Yeah, the Holiday Bowl rematch. Or you could end up in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth, or the ServPro First Responder Bowl in Dallas. Those would be more closely surrounding the Christmas holiday, the 23rd and 26th. So
I'm you know of those three, I'm very tempted to make it to one of them. I mean,
yeah,
that's dumb. That's a dumb way for me to word that. I think I could make any of those work, and so I'm really just trying to see where they actually land, and even Shreveport, because that game kicks off I think at 8:15 p.m. So if it's a good weather day, I could in theory just hop in the car at a normal time that morning, get there, check into the hotel,
it's like an 8-hour
get to the
drive from here.
yeah, it is. but normal time. It's not like I have to leave at 7 in the morning. I could leave at 8, get there 5 or 6, with some stops and some traffic and whatnot. Unpack the bag, head to the stadium.
Let's see what that
No
drive
problem.
looks like. Hold on.
I looked it up the other day. 7 hours, 36 minutes or something like that from Lubbock to Shreveport Lou.
From my house to Shreveport, 750.
Ooh, maybe I looked up.
But
Yeah,
there are some road closures real close by, so maybe that's some
Man.
traffic maybe slowing us down.
Okay, maybe I should leave a little early. Maybe I'll grab some Whataburger and hit the road early.
Hey, this could end up being like a 23 personal road trip. We could
Then
show
we just come right back.
the gambling.
Game's over. We just get in the car and drive home.
No. I'd spend the night there, man. That I'm not driving 16 hours back and forth after a 4-hour game.
Yeah, that'd be a bad idea.
Just drive back on Sunday, but well, I don't know because I'm going to be in Dallas for Christmas. It'd really be better. It'd really be better, more convenient for me if they would just
It'd be more convenient for a lot of people if it was in Dallas.
If they would just do it the Frisco or the Fort Worth Bowl, please, and just skip the Independence Bowl. So we'll obviously keep an eye on that. We'll know more on Sunday where they're headed. Let's quickly run through the last week of Big 12 action and then get to the final standings. Michael, we've been talking a lot about Texas Tech, which of course is what we normally would, but we have a lot more to talk about football wise before we wrap it up. Last weekend, Oklahoma defeated TCU 69-45. That's a lot of freaking points. I did not watch that game. I was so beaten down by Texas Tech. Granted, I think that one was also on Friday, and I was not.
Well,
in
it
the
was
mood
before.
Yeah,
Right,
I was.
and it was before.
Yeah, wasn't watching that one. That's a lot of points for OU to give up to TCU, but a ton of points for TCU to give up.
Speaking of points, any guess on what the over under was on that game according to ESPN?
70.
Close. OU hit it on their own. It was 66.5.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Farmageddon did not see this game scoring 80 points. Especially in the snow. But Iowa State takes down Kansas State 42-35. Again, ton of points for Iowa State. They supremely performed my expectations this year.
Yeah, and the Gauchos had a tweet that I kind of agree with. They said Matt Campbell, Big 12 Coach of the Year? ?
Maybe. I assumed with all the non preseason stuff they were going to be a little more hampered, but maybe not.
Yeah, I think it's between him and probably Gundy and
or Neil Brown.
Yeah, those are the three. Or it's Sarkisian. I mean, really, Sarkisian's a you hate to give it to the number one team in the conference, but yeah, that's a
Screw those
pretty
guys.
good turnaround. Sure.
They were expected to
Agreed.
win the conference, and they did. That they met expectations. Okay.
Fair enough.
Oklahoma State needed overtime to defeat BYU, and it was a turnover in overtime against a
brutal.
BYU backup quarterback on the road, 40-34. I watched a couple minutes of that game. I was bored. I was looking for things to watch on Saturday, and it wasn't holding my attention. It was basically just taking up time until Farmageddon kicked off.
Well, part of it was because it was, BYU was up 24-6 going into halftime, and Oklahoma State didn't decide to really show up till the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So they played their way into the conference title game, which is crazy. Which we'll talk about the preseason projections and how everybody finished and how it happened. But that was crazy to me. UCF beating Houston 27-13. That sealed Houston's 3-9 season.
I think they won
4. They're 4-8.
4-8.
2-7 in Big 12 play, but did get UCF to 6 wins. West Virginia squeaked one out against Baylor 34-31. Oh, really quickly back to Kansas State. You saw that Will Howard is hitting the portal, right?
Yes, I did.
And
so
Trayshawn
Avery
Ward.
Johnson, here we go.
Oh my gosh, and he's gonna eat everybody's lunch. He's so good.
Maybe we don't have to play him.
And they're running back. Yeah, maybe. I don't have the schedule.
I don't remember the matrix. I don't remember the scheduling matrix.
West Virginia took down Baylor 34-31. Kansas put the nail in the Cincinnati coffin 49-16.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
That was a storm of bad things for Cincinnati. First year coach making the jump up to Big 12 play, bringing a lot of new players. Bad. Speaking of bringing a lot of new players, let's not forget all the hype that Colorado was getting coming into the season. Quietly finished the year 4-8.
Yeah, and I think they won. They finished on a 6-year skid. Is that right?
A 6-game
Or
skid?
6-year, 6-game. Yeah, I think it was something.
It's bad.
Really rough. Their 4 wins came early.
Yeah. So that sets up the Big 12 title game this weekend, Saturday at 11 on ABC. Texas, Oklahoma State. It is going to be a bloodbath. The Pokes fought so hard to get into this game, and they are going to get annihilated. They are so bad. They are
the
product
so lucky
of the schedule. Yes, and that was one thing that we pointed out, which we'll get to here in a second. How a team would finish above or below. One thing we said for Oklahoma State, because they were picked 8th, Michael. And we said one reason that they'd finish better is they had the second easiest schedule out there.
Mm-hmm. They played all 4 newbies.
Yeah. So, let's run through the rest of the conference here real quickly. So,
I forgot. I meant to add I think the last I saw, Texas was a 13.5-point favorite.
Good gravy. You know, I think they were a 14-point favorite when Tech made the trip down there.
Did you?
So we know how that went.
Did you see? And who knows? This might have been mind games or whatever, but supposedly Sarkisian didn't even have them practice in pads all week.
No.
That was something I saw from a credible reporter, a blue check somebody.
Yeah, that doesn't help, Michael.
I think that happened. No, it doesn't.
It
doesn't help.
So why they finished better, worse than projection? Texas projected first. They finished first. They couldn't finish any better than first. Everything comes together, which it did. Then they leave the Big 12 in the dust with a conference title. That's what we said in August. That's what happened. 11-1 on the season, 8-1 in Big 12 play. OU was picked to finish second. They ended up finishing third at 10-2. So just one spot off, 7-2 in conference play. Kansas State was picked to finish third, fell to fifth. They probably would have hit right at third had they beat Iowa State, or even second. I don't remember how all the tiebreakers would have worked out. They may have finished second had they beat Iowa State and Farmageddon there this past weekend, but they fell to fifth. TCU preseason was picked fourth. They finished ninth. They miss a bowl game. They go from national title game to missing a bowl game. Michael, did you hear that they had possibly known about Michigan sign stealing? But instead of being little babies about it, they actually were smart. And I'll give them credit if this is what happened. They didn't change, like, they didn't stop using their signals, but what they did is they changed what it meant. So when they had a signal that said, hey, we're going to throw a sideline screen or whatever, and they would expect the Michigan defense to play real tight, what they did is had like a double move, and they built in whatever would be most advantageous. If a defense thought you were doing A, then we're going to do B. If that's how they beat Michigan as bad as they did in the playoff last year, props to them. Yeah. They said, hey, Michigan, if you're going to try to steal signs, fine. We'll be smart and change them up. And they did. If if that's what they did, good for them.
Well, that was the former OC too, right?
Yeah, that would have been Riley, who is, no longer with them. Texas Tech was picked to finish fifth, finished seventh, based on some tiebreakers because you didn't have the best record here. You finished ahead of somebody with a better record. But you finished 6-6, 5-4. We thought, obviously, if you're going to be better than fifth, you're going to have a healthy Tyler Shuck, which you didn't get. Returning production on O-line, they were okay. They weren't like glaring issues, like you didn't have a big hole somewhere. You moved some guys around. You had to deal with the Stats injury, the Spencer injury. Um, I thought you would have had a better jump in the offensive production based on year 2 in the system. And then why they had finished worse. Fourth down production regresses. You definitely saw the number of attempts drop way down because your third downs were super long. You couldn't replace Tyree Wilson. That absolutely was true. And
Yeah.
then your linebackers, that was not true because your linebackers that you played this year, Ben Roberts and Rodriguez, when he was healthy, were fantastic. Baylor they were picked to finish 6th. They finished 13th. We thought they had the best running back room in the conference. Odd year spikes. This actually breaks that cycle. They were good in odd years coming up into this. We thought they'd finish worse if they, just had to replace too much on the offensive line. Shapen just isn't that good. Shapen wasn't bad. He was hurt most of the year though. They just weren't there. UCF was picked to finish 7th. They finished 9th. We said they had a dynamic rushing offense with Plumlee and the running backs. Guess what, Michael? They were top 5 rushing offense in the country.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good running the ball.
Oklahoma State picked 8th, finished 2nd. We said, again, second easiest schedule. Offense can't get worse, question mark. It was something. They tried to roll with 3 different quarterbacks, finally settled on Bowman. Bowman was kind of a point guard in the sense that like he distributed the ball, didn't make a
He
ton
made
of
some pretty good
mistakes.
throws. I didn't watch a ton of Oklahoma State this year, but that BYU game, he made some pretty good throws. I was pretty impressed with it. Got the ball out quickly too, which always seemed to be a problem.
Yep. BYU was picked 9th. They finished 12th. They had a track record of producing quality quarterbacks, and I'm blanking on their starter's name. Who was it? Number 12.
Oh my gosh. No clue.
Keaton Slovis.
There it is.
He was pretty good when he was in there. Iowa State was picked 10th, finished 4th. Huge jump up. This was in the back. I said, in our predictions here, how they could finish better. And I was like, I'm not sure. Maybe they find diamonds in the rough buried on the depth chart. Probably what happened because I was so down on them and they completely overshot there. 6-3 in Big 12 play.
Yeah. And so they lost 2 conference games. So they were 2-2 or 1-2 actually heading into Big 12 play, and everybody just thought, well, this is just going to be they're going to be awful.
Mm-hmm.
Then they went on a really solid run and started playing some really good football, and you started seeing that defense that they'd been able to hang their hat on the last couple of years.
Yep. Kansas was picked to finish 11th and finished 8th. I thought they could have and should have finished better than that. Here's a team that you finished ahead of, but they had a better record. You were 7th, 6-6, 5-4. Kansas was 8th at 8-4, also 5-4, but you had the head-to-head. We said that it finished better than that because of the best quarterback running back combo in the conference. I think that held out to be true. Texas probably could have competed for that if Jonathan Brooks had stayed healthy all year. If Daniels for Kansas had stayed healthy all year, it wouldn't have been even a question. They returned almost all their offense. They were building momentum. Jason Bean was also a just fantastic backup quarterback for them. How they would finish worse, they were replacing their defensive line. We saw that against Texas Tech. Like for stretches of the game, Texas Tech was able to do what they wanted against that defensive line. But good enough to finish with 8-4 record, most wins for Kansas in I don't know 15 years, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Good for only 8th in the conference though. Cincinnati picked to finish 12th, finished 14th, ended up going 3-9. I thought the quarterback would have been better. They just didn't come together just yet. West Virginia picked to finish 13th, ended up finishing 6th. We thought, they were going to be better than that because Brown was going to be forced to use Garrett Green in the run game. Guess what? Green was their third leading rusher on their team, 111 carries, 708 yards, 6.5 yards per carry, and 13 rushing touchdowns. When he even played the whole year, which was fantastic. They had two running backs finish with almost identical yards. CJ Donaldson had just under 800 yards. Jaheim White 792, right up there with Green. So their replacement, they're replacing talent there on the offense, which I think we said that they would falter there. Had so much to replace. They had three guys combined for 2,500 rushing yards, which is fantastic for them. And then finally, Houston picked to finish 14th, finished 11th. I thought Donovan Smith and Tony Mathis would have been better. But they ended up, they had to replace every significant contributor from last season. So it happens.
Which is
Cost
is
Holgerson his job.
This is what Tech's about to do too, right?
I don't want to talk about it, man. It's gonna be bad.
It's fine. It's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay.
I wrote a note to myself that I'm gonna read in August next year to remind myself not to pick Tech to go.
Don't drink the
8-4.
Kool-Aid.
Yeah, don't go 8-4 again.
All right. Anything else on football you want to touch on before we wrap this up? Move on to basketball.
No, I think the main things I wanted to just kind of gloss over, which we did a little bit with Coach of the Year candidates. West Virginia being picked 16th, finishing 6th. Iowa State being picked 10th, finishing 4th. And then Oklahoma State being picked 8th and finishing 2nd. Just to see those kinds of turnarounds and way exceeding expectations. I think that makes a viable candidate. Of course, Leipold's always got to be in the mix too. Kansas, although they weren't picked last, they were picked 11th, and they finished 8th. And like you said, it's a weird spot to be an 8th with an 8-4 record, but 5-4 in the Big 12 with who they lost to, including Tech. That'll put you there. So he's got to be in the running as well. But some really good coaching and team efforts from the Big 12 this kind of weird one-off season until the other 4 show up and 2 leave.
Yeah.
The big, what's the math there? So 12, there's Big 16 will be the Big 16.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Did you want to talk about our prediction? Really quickly, our predictions about over/under season totals for the Big 12 teams. We were perfectly 7-7.
Yeah.
Although we didn't pick the same 7 teams to go over/under. Baylor over/under 7.5. We both picked the under. They finished in 3 wins, obviously. BYU had the weird 4.5, 5, or 5.5. I picked the under. I hit it. You hit the over and missed. Cincinnati 5.5. I thought they would be better than that, but barely. But no, they were bad. Houston 4.5. Somehow we both picked the under. It worked.
Squeaks by. Got it.
Iowa State 4.5. We both picked the under. We were both dead wrong.
I was not feeling the Cyclones in August with all that stuff happening.
No, not at all. Kansas 6.5. I picked the over. You picked under. The over cashed on that one. Kansas State 7.5. We both picked the over. Oklahoma 9.5. We both said they wouldn't hit that. They finished at 10. Oklahoma State 6.5. I said under. You said over. You probably not that much over. They went 9 wins.
Yeah,
pretty significant over. 6.5. Texas, we split here. They were 9.5. Finished with 11. I said they'd go over. You said under.
That was totally a hater pick on my part.
That's okay. TCU 7.5. We both said under. We were both right. Texas Tech 7.5 wins. We both said over. We were both wrong. Oh, they should have won 8 games. Let's be honest. UCF 6.5. I said over. I was a believer. Just barely missed that though. You said under, and you were right there. We were both wrong on West Virginia's 5.5 and they finished with 8. So, all right. Let's talk basketball, Michael.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Lady Raiders, perfect 7-0 so far in the season. I've gone on a 4-game win streak since our last recording. Obviously, they haven't lost, so everything's a win streak right now. Friday night, they demolished Texas A&M Commerce 91-45. Monday, the 20th, they squeaked out, I guess, had a 5-point win versus UTSA, but a win's a win's a win, right? And then they had their Thanksgiving weekend tournament in Las Vegas, took down Rutgers by 7 points, and then Santa Clara by 5.
I actually took the family to the UTSA game. That was a great game to go to.
Awesome.
Got seats 5 rows up, right behind the ESPN broadcasters. I had a shirt thrown at me that I totally whiffed, missing
Oh, no.
just right through the hands, like one of Mahomes' receivers.
Mm.
And she threw it with about as much mustard as Mahomes does. I mean, that I felt the air zip by. So
She's
that was a
probably throwing it
blast.
to you, and you're just like,
I felt like she was throwing it to someone. I'm going to assume she was throwing it to someone 18 rows behind me, because that was how much mustard she had on that. But that was a fun game. That was one of those that felt like the Lady Raiders were going to run away with it a little bit. But because UTSA came out and they played really tough and close in the first quarter, and you thought, man, this is just going to be neck and neck the whole way. And then second quarter, it kind of opened up. Lady Raiders started hitting some threes. Chevalier, I think hell would be trying to break a press against her or something. It's just, yeah, she's really tenacious on defense. But so kind of going into halftime, it felt like, oh, the Lady Raiders may run away with this. And nope. Third quarter happened. I think UTSA outscored them third and fourth quarters. So they kept getting in there and making some good shots and playing good defense. It was an exciting game. It was fun. And we're going to go to, I know you're about to get into the schedule. So
Mhm.
they play tomorrow night, which is not November 69th. What date is that? November 28th. So they play tomorrow night at 6 p.m. versus UC Irvine. That's
The
going to be on
29th.
ESPN Plus. 29th.
Today's the 28th.
You're right. I looked at today's date and put today's date in because I'm a goober. Friday, December 1st versus Houston Christian, 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus. We're going to that one too. So excited to see them play again. Took advantage of the Thanksgiving 23 promo. They're like $3 tickets.
Nice.
And then they'll play Tuesday night right after we record next week versus Sam Houston.
Right before we
And
record.
yeah, sorry. Well,
It'd be a late game if they were
yeah,
starting after
you're
we.
right. You're right. So just, go out to see the Lady Raiders if you can. Most all their games are on ESPN Plus, except for those few that were in Las Vegas that were on Flow Hoops. Boo, Flow Hoops. And also, be sure to check out our friends within the Staking the Plains podcast network, Seeing Scarlet. Go check out what they have to say about the Lady Raiders. They have interviews. They have quite a bit of access to the program and are doing an excellent job giving the Lady Raiders the coverage they deserve. So please check out Seeing Scarlet. Shelby and Sibby will walk you through and keep you hyped up for everything Lady Raider basketball.
Yeah, they do. They do fantastic work. They were on the ball all season with the soccer team.
Yes.
Super in depth coverage on the basketball team last season as they kicked off their podcast. So if you don't follow them, subscribe to their stuff, you're missing out. The men's team, we mentioned 5-1 so far this season. I guess they finished 5th in the Battle for Atlantis tournament. They dropped game 1 to Villanova, battled back against Northern Iowa when they were down at half. I was like, oh no, this is going to be bad. Had to come back to win that one. Won it by 2 on Thanksgiving morning. And then
had some last second heroics too. It was pretty dramatic.
Yeah. And then just absolutely dominated Michigan. And I don't know what happened with Jawan Howard getting ejected there, but
I never found out either.
yeah, I was we were running around a lot Friday. But you win that one pretty big, 73-57. Um, it's fantastic to see that. Getting ready for the trip to Indianapolis, take on Butler at Hinkle Fieldhouse. That'll be Thursday night. So here in a day and a half. Um, you are a slight underdog in this game, at least according to Haslametrics, 68.99, so just under 69 points to 70.54 in favor of Butler there. They are the 58th best team on KenPom, whereas Texas Tech is 47th, but obviously you're going to be on the road. You did you did see a significant bump here in Haslametrics. You went from 45th to 30th. You're 47th on KenPom. BPI only ranks the top 50. You were 44th, and you're no longer in that right now. So, your tempo, Michael did find this. Your tempo is picking up. You were 300th. We talked about that last week or last time, but it's 232. But you've got this matchup coming up against Butler this weekend. Not this weekend. Pretty balanced in terms of offense, defense. They're 60th on offense, 62nd on defense, whereas you're 101st on offense, 13th on defense. But the tempo there is quite a bit slower, 232 to 115. They are 5-2 on the season. They lost to Michigan State and Florida Atlantic, who were both ranked at the time, and they've beaten Penn State and Boise State. Michael, what is your feel on this this Texas Tech edition in the Big East battle?
I don't have like you said, it's kind of going to be strange to go against such a balanced team that don't they play a lot better offense than Tech does, but not as good a defense, and to have it be kind of that disparity. This could be I don't know. This maybe Tech will actually get a little bit of points on the board. It could be kind of a higher scoring game than what we've seen so far, but we have seen some pretty high scoring games to get into the 70s as many times as we have on both sides, on
Mm-hmm.
offensively and defensively. That's not something you're seeing too much the last few years in this program. But yeah, I think the Haslametrics is probably right to get it close to the 70s. I think both of these teams will be able to score on each other despite Tech having kind of the edge defensively. But I mean, Pierre Brooks, the second, he's one of their guard/forwards. He comes in at 6'6", 240.
Big dude, yeah.
Yeah, he's a big guy, and he's their highest scorer on the team. He's averaging almost 17 points a game on 50% field goal shooting, including 41% from three.
Mm-hmm.
He's 74% from the line, so pretty effective there. Forward Jamil Telfort, 6'7", 225, not quite as beefy, but he's their second leading scorer with 14 points per game, 45% from the field, 33% from three, 81% from the charity stripe. And I mean, and as a team, these guys shoot 33.5% from three. Tech is at 27%, which surprised me, honestly. I thought it was going to be worse. I didn't go back through and see where it ticked up, but it obviously must have been better in the battle for Atlantis. They must have made up a little bit of ground because the first two games were abysmal, and it must have just gotten better beyond that. But something to watch for against Butler. Butler has 41 steals as a team in 7 games, so even if their defense may not be as formidable according to Haslametrics or something, they do have a knack for knocking the ball away, and they have a knack for blocking
Yeah, I was going
the
to
ball.
point that out
Yeah,
there.
yeah, the
6'10" guy
big
off the
guy.
bench.
Yeah, 6'10". I think he's 215, not 115. I
That'd
definitely
be
didn't type that right.
a pretty railed
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. But yeah, he's only played in 6 games, but he has 13 blocks, Spencer.
Oof.
And that's in 74 minutes of play. 13 blocks. I think Tech as a team has 20 or 21, something like that. And this is a big dude with a headband, I think, who comes up off the bench and just swats some shots and goes and sits back down.
I'm going to look it
So
up.
yeah,
Connor
might have to
Turnbull.
see what Connor Turnbull does. If you see him enter the court, then I don't know if you should drive the lane too much.
I don't see any headbands, but
Oh, maybe I made that up.
where's 22 for Butler?
I think I made that up.
Okay.
He's a big white guy, so I just assumed he had a headband.
He's got some lettuce too.
Yeah, maybe that was it. I just assumed people with lettuce have a headband. I
Yeah.
would. I did actually back when I had hair. I wore a headband.
I would have loved to have seen that.
I might have a picture floating around somewhere.
So yeah, I'd love to see Texas Tech take this one, steal it on the road, but so far it's like I have to see it to believe it. Same with the football team going on the road, and then being able to win there. Just so many questions so far in the early part of the season, with the rotation and who's going to step up, and is the shooting going to improve? Is your defense going to continue to play as strongly as it has? After that, though, you come back home for next week, Wednesday the 6th, hosting Omaha. Pretty comfortable win here projected. Omaha's not a great team. 81-58. We'll do the more of a full preview on that next week once we come back. And then you're off again until the following Tuesday. So this will be probably right about halftime as we hit record here. 8 p.m. versus Oral Bob. About a 13, 14-point win so far projected for the Red Raiders. Anything else on basketball, Michael?
I think I'm good for now.
I just
I don't want to comment too much because I have not given this team the time it deserves for me to do that. So I really kind of need to sit my butt in front of the TV and watch more games and pay more attention. And I will do that now that football season's over. My brain just gets too zeroed in on one thing.
well, let's zero in on basketball, Michael. Let's pay attention.
Let's do it.
Let's focus.
That's where we are now, baby.
All right, let's
I just babied you, man. Yeah.
let's wrap this up with what do we learn, all right?
Okay.
What did we learn, Palmer?
I don't know, sir.
I don't know either.
All right. Michael, you posed a question and then you have a thought here. Where do you want to start?
Let me start with my thought. I've got an old man yells at cloud thought thing. So my wife and I went to the UCF game, bought tickets through SeatGeek, which was easy, not a big deal. And I guess because of the ticket list thing, they showed it. They even show up in my Texas Tech account, so I could see them there. And went to my phone, never had a problem. But I'm not someone who likes to hunt around for parking. And so even though I bought it on SeatGeek and I just have the one ticket, this was a Sunday or a Saturday before the game I did this. I purchased a parking pass.
Okay.
And the last time I did this, the same thing happened. They did not mail it. And I had to drive my happy ass up to Jones AT&T Stadium between the hours of 8 and 5 and pick it up in person to get the parking pass. And you just feel like, one, all right, I live in town. Just put it in the mail. Two, if you're not going to put it in the mail, tell me. Don't just send me an email saying, hey, confirmed, we've received your thing. Three, why is this still a thing? Why aren't these
they
digital?
You can't scan these things anymore.
Yes. Right. I mean, they don't even scan them when you walk. Why are these still a thing? Make it a thing where I can just get it on my phone, and if someone has to scan it, or they can just look at my phone when I drive in, fine. I will handle that. And then the other thing, I get to the stinking arena parking, and they're there with all these passes, I didn't even think about it. like, could I have just bought a pass that day as I was driving into the parking lot and probably paid half the price? Here's the thing, too, Spencer. $15
Uh-oh.
parking pass, $30. $30 with fees and convenience and shipping. They didn't mail the thing. It cost me $6 for them to not mail it. I had to
How,
go get it.
how does that work out? Could you not be
I don't
like,
know.
you charged me shipping for something that I had to come
Yes.
pick up?
Yeah.
You
There
didn't
was like
ship it.
some fee, some something, some shipping fee, and $15 turned into 30. Give me a break. And then I have to download an app to ride the bus. Grow up. Why can't I
Oh
just hand
man,
someone
Michael.
cash? Like the old days. Just hand a man cash and just, here you go, good sir. Here's $10 for my fine wife and I to take the carriage to the football game.
So
No, I
this is
have to
gonna
stand there and download an app and sign up and create a password and enter my credit card and buy the two one-way pass things and then accept it
oh
and then do
man.
something else and then show the person, can I get on the bus now?
No, apparently not.
Sorry.
I was gonna say this is gonna out me as having not been to a Texas Tech game this year and for a while.
Well,
Like
I've been
I
to one
always
every
park at
year.
UMC.
Well, I've been to one
Is
every
not
year.
available?
It is. It is, but they have a bus there.
Right.
But so
Which
if
you have to pay for the bus, but
you have to pay to
the
get
parking's
on.
free. Yeah.
So the crutch is this is the first time my wife and I have been to a game. We started talking about it. This is the first time we've been to a game together since I think 2015. No. That's not right. That's not right. We 2017 or 18 was the last time we were at a game together. Um, but I've been to some since then. And what I would like to do is I would go park and then I would walk to the game just because I like to walk the campus. If I'm just by myself, that's usually what I do. So I haven't ridden the bus from the USA to the Jones in like 3 or 4 years. Now I've ridden it back to the USA because they don't ask for money when you go back.
No.
But
Yeah.
I like walking across campus, and so I thought, it was kind of chilly, and we weren't going to do that. No big deal. But yeah, I didn't know that could have been implemented 2 or 3 seasons ago. The whole get your, download your app for your bus pass thing. So
I'm
I wanted to
sorry
get that out
for
of the
your
way.
experience.
It was, you know what? But the game itself was great, aside from the super, super, super drunk people in front of us
Oh
that
man.
that I don't think watched the game at all. Somehow occupied 2 or 3 rows and were in different seats constantly. None of them were their seats. We don't know. It was
That's
bizarre,
rough.
and they were all
Where
like 30s. You know, they were mid 30s. They were not. It was almost sad. It was just they had snuck in this bottle of tequila and were passing it around, and
oh my gosh.
this guy fell as he was trying to be real cool and go over the seats and spilled his beer all over like 4 people. Just, I mean, there were a couple of them that spent more time facing the opposite direction than
Is the game over
the
here?
football. No one knew what the score was. You could ask them anything about the game and they wouldn't have been able to tell you. Brutal.
Where'd you sit?
About the 50-yard line on the east side, but I was pretty high up, like road. Crap, I can't remember what row it was on. Not super high up, but kind of right in the middle of the middle, if that makes any sense. It was perfect. They were great seats. We loved the seats, but then these people showed up midway through the second quarter, and you're like, good Lord, I wish they would leave.
I never finished the rewatch on the UCF game. I started and I realized my recording picked up and it was 7-0. It's like, where's the first UCF score? Why is this wrong? Hulu. What did you do? Because I set it to record before the game started. So it must have had like a channel switch or something and it didn't catch it or something. I don't know. I was frustrated. I was like, pfft. And then we weren't going to do an instant reaction to UCF. So I was like, I'm not
It's like
I followed the
whatever.
game from the beach or whatever from our vacation, but I never got to watch any of it.
So,
Speaking of though,
yeah.
we were back home in time for Thanksgiving dinner. Probably the latest I've ever done Thanksgiving, the actual Thanksgiving meal in my life. We usually do like we're one of those weird families that I grew up having Thanksgiving lunch at like 3 o'clock, which my wife thinks is absolutely insane. I was like, well, if that's just like if you go into it like that's what you do, then you plan for that. You have a bigger breakfast. You grab some snacks beforehand, and then you stay out of the way because if you're in the kitchen, you're in the way, or you're gonna be put to work, and that's also just
Yeah.
as bad.
Yes.
But they've always done like a lunch like at noon, and I was like, oh, I can see it both ways. Anyways, they delayed it because our family and then Samantha's sister that were traveling with us, we were driving back from San Antonio Thanksgiving Day, so we rolled in like 4 o'clock Thanksgiving Day. So we had dinner, which was fantastic, but there was some family tension about starting Thanksgiving meal that late.
Mm. Mm.
But
No,
anyways,
Thanksgiving family tension at Thanksgiving is always the best, isn't it? It's just
well,
great.
it's family tension anytime the entire family gets together about
Yeah,
anything.
there's something.
Pictures, Sunday dinner, something is being
Mm-hmm.
brought up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it was good. It was good food. Obviously the baby's first Thanksgiving, and she's old enough now where she's eating stuff with like, of course, lots of Thanksgiving sides are soft enough to give to a baby. So it's like
Yes, that's
a
true.
bite for me, a bite for the baby, a bite for me. I don't like yams anymore. Baby does though. Load her up. But it was also with it being vacation. It was one of the last meals of like a cheat week, which was
Yeah,
not the way
yeah.
to go. I think, now granted, I wasn't keeping up with exercise or my water intake, but I think when I got back, I was 9 pounds heavier than when I left. But I'm down 7 pounds since that happened. So I was
So
like, I've
Steven.
also lost it real quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
But fairly good Thanksgiving. What about you, man? How was your Thanksgiving? Your meals? Your meal?
It was good. I was gonna see if you had like a highlight, if there was a food highlight that either you guys brought or someone had there. What was the best thing when you sat down
We
at Thanksgiving, or even if it was a dessert later on?
we did not bring anything because we were coming back into town without any time to do anything. Then should have expected this. I've never actually tried to go out and buy anything on Thanksgiving, but everything had shut down at like noon. If they were even
Ah,
open on Thanksgiving, had closed, so we weren't gonna be able to bring anything anyways. Traveling back on Thanksgiving Day was a disaster. We're trying to find
oh
a
no.
spot about halfway back so we could stop for lunch. And halfway between San Antonio and Lubbock is like Ballinger.
Yes.
There's there's
There's
like
Allsup's.
there's a Allsup's, but like there's a Golden Chick. There's this like small mom and pop burger place, Sonic. There's McDonald's, whatever. We'll find something. Rolling in town
There's probably some
gas
like
station is the only
Bearcat
thing open.
Diner. There's a Bearcat Diner somewhere if you know where to look.
Yeah, but Allsup's was the only place open.
Yeah, it was.
So we got Fritos, bean dip,
Oh
like
my gosh.
the little package of queso. We made little nachos. The kids
Did you just
had
drive back
Lunchables
to
out of the
Lubbock with the
coolers.
windows down or what?
No, it wasn't that bad.
Wasn't that bad? Okay.
We had like just a little bit of car snacks left. We weren't trying to keep any car snacks, but we were ready for Thanksgiving dinner. Like we
I bet.
didn't get to eat. But I mean, it was standard Thanksgiving fare for us. We didn't do anything crazy. We didn't have anything non-traditional. Had a couple of turkeys that were great. Mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, cornbread stuffing, stovetop stuffing, dressing, whatever you want to call it. I'm not super particular about what you call it, but the dressing.
Everyone knows what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get
They
it.
had like the broccoli souffle casserole type thing, green bean casserole. It's just standard stuff. It was good. It wasn't like there wasn't anything on my plate. I was like, I need more of that. There were 4 different pie options. and I got 2 small slices of my pies I wanted to try. Samantha got 2 slices of pies that she wanted to try, which between the two of us, we covered all 4 of them.
Smart.
So I had a bite of hers, her too. I had pumpkin and a berry cobbler type pie, or I guess cobbler. Her then she had like a chocolate pudding type pie and a pecan.
Oh man,
So
pecan is so
good.
good.
It was good. I the way Kyle was talking about them taking some barbecue home for Thanksgiving is like I want to try like a barbecue spin too. I'm not gonna like go all in and like we're gonna do like a barbecue Thanksgiving, but maybe have like turkey and brisket or turkey and some pulled pork and make some little sliders or something on the Hawaiian rolls or
Well, I did smoke a turkey breast this year. I've got like this. It's actually a Traeger recipe where you make herb butter and you put it under the skin and then you baste it with the herb butter too. But you also brine it like the night before. So anyway, I did that, and while I was doing that, I was kind of going to do my own really minor spin on it. I bought some Opa's smoked sausages,
mm,
and I was just going to have right. Who doesn't like just hey, here's some sliced smoked sausage just around, just grab you a piece, whatever. While I've got the smoker running, throw some sausages on there. Yeah, I forgot to put them on.
oh no.
Never even remembered. It was like that night. Oh yeah, we've got those sausages. Dang it. We'll still eat them sometime, but yeah, I would be. What I enjoy about what we do is Christmas is like it's always non-traditional. We've done prime rib a couple, not prime rib, beef tenderloin a couple times, but outside of that, it's just kind of whatever sounds good. Christmas is always just a free for all. Sometimes I think we have done ham before, so that's the one where we really just kind of do whatever we want. We were even talking about doing steaks this year, just getting some good steaks and marinating them and throwing those on the grill. But yeah, I like your idea of kind of keeping it traditional possibly for a Thanksgiving, but then throwing some sort of barbecue spin. And I feel like pulled pork or ribs would be kind of in that mix there. Like, I mean, I could see a rack of ribs just sitting somewhere along dressing and green beans and, polish off a piece of pecan pie after you had some ribs. That'd work.
Yeah.
That all works.
We've done prime rib the past few Christmases at my mom's house. And then we did a we got one last year from Red Rooter Meats that we
Oh yeah,
smoked.
that's right.
Sorry, that they had cooked. We just warmed up, which was fantastic. And my mom's like, "So what do we want to have on Christmas Day?" And it's like, I don't know if we want to do the same thing again. If we want to go get another roast or do something. She doesn't have a smoker at her house, so I can't like let's do brisket and then like have a way to
Yeah.
actually make it happen. We could do it in the oven, but that's not smoking a brisket. So I need to figure that out. I did get I wanted to get one of those little turkey roasts to put on the smoker and have more turkey. We didn't have there were no leftovers that came home with us, which was wild. This is one of the first times I can ever remember. Like I had Thanksgiving meal once, and that was it. Um,
Really? Yeah, that is kind of it. We were Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah, we had some leftovers, but it was all manageable. It wasn't like a crazy amount, which we thought was, oh, that's nice. And we've been, especially my wife's, really conscious of trying to do that and trying to coach our moms. Hey,
make extra.
you're not you're not feeding teenage boys anymore, and let's not.
Yeah,
We can make half.
yeah. So on our grocery order, like right after we got back, this was like Saturday, I think, which was also a mess.
Oh,
Uh,
sure.
I think it was Saturday. We needed a few things. We had a small order, but big enough that we could actually place an order. We get to Walmart and we had it set to pick up for like 8 and 9. And first says your order's delayed. We're like, well, that's fine, because we were over at our parents' house and we weren't ready to leave yet. They're like, it's fine. We're watching a movie. We'll wrap it up. Lost City. It's hilarious. The second time, even the
Oh
second time
man,
through.
we've been wanting to watch that. Yeah,
Sandra Bullock and who is
Channing
that?
Tatum.
Channing Tatum. You got me. I knew it was
No,
Tatum.
that wasn't in part.
Whatever
That
his
was
name
not
is.
intentional. That was not intentional. I just.
Funny.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so we get the text. It's ready to go. It's like 8:15. So it's like only like 15 minutes late. So we pack up and head out. Movie's over. We end up sitting outside waiting for them to bring our order for an hour and a half. Samantha has a theory that their delivery, the pickup employees didn't want to drop off any groceries in the rain. At that point in our part, our little slice of heaven down here in South Lubbock, it was sprinkling Saturday night. And I guess Samantha thought it was enough precipitation that they were like, no, I don't want to get outside in that. So like nobody was getting their food. And like there's a line outside the door, the outside door. They come out of your food. People were standing in line. It's like, I'm not gonna get in line. Like, we're gonna ask them as they walk by, but I'm not standing in line. And it took us an hour and a half to get our order.
Oh my gosh.
It did not have that turkey roast in our order, so we still haven't been able to. Long story short, TLDR, did not get the turkey roast yet. So
We got a free chuck roast in ours.
stop.
My wife did a pickup yesterday. Came home with a free chuck roast. And we were both like, yes, because usually whatever the free thing you accidentally get sometimes is just, oh crap, I'm not gonna eat this. Or you're missing something. I was like, this is the best. We got a chuck roast.
See if she'll make you some birria tacos.
I'm gonna see. She's got it planned already. So for the week, it just threw her off because she's like, I don't know what to do with this thing. I think we're gonna have to freeze it. And I was like, okay,
Tacos.
yeah, we'll freeze it. That's a great idea because I was almost thinking beef stew.
Well,
that's
too.
kind of where I was leaning to. Was like a really hearty beef stew.
Cube it up and make some chili.
Oh yeah. But yeah, bonus chuck roast.
Bonus roast.
Sorry to whoever didn't get theirs, but
it's kind of
I'm sure they were able to just. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, they don't really question stuff. You just say it wasn't in your thing, and then they give it to you.
Yeah,
because it happens a lot.
All right, I think that'll do it for us on the 23 Personnel podcast this week.
Are you sure you don't have more to talk about?
I got lots of food to talk about. We can keep going. We've been having a lot of pork butt lately, smoked pork butt. I have to get one of those defrosted and on the smoker here pretty soon. Anyways, that'll do it for us this week on 23 Personnel Podcast, getting you ready for transfer season, for basketball season. But for Michael, I'm Spencer. Catch you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to the 23 Personnel Podcast. Help us out by subscribing, rating the show, and leaving a review. Follow us on Twitter at 23 Personnel, Spencer at PuntSuck, and Michael at Michael_LBK. Be sure to catch the next episode. And until then, guns up and let the tortillas fly.